Hello and welcome to Chess with Simon. I'm Simon. Today we're going to look at a game of chess by Mr. Raymond Keene. Ray Keene is an incredible man. He was part of the growth of serious chess in the UK. So, firstly, he's a grandmaster and a very strong grandmaster. He was a pioneer of modernism. So, I think modernism was a big strand in the British chess scene, and a kind of maverick style in Britain of people just saying they weren't going to be too conformist, and Ray was an important part of that, and it was a very wonderful, positive, and a lot of modernism was correct as well. It's just correct objectively. The game we're about to look at is a modernist game. Ray also was a pioneer of chess publishing. Now, chess publishing revolutionised chess. So when I was young, when I was 8, played chess with my dad, and we played e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and then I would play d6. We just played that every night. Like, we didn't think about all of the different possibilities. And when I bought Batsford's Chess Openings 2 and just started reading it, it just opens your mind to the possibilities of chess and the various different variations and just how many flavours of the Sicilian or the French or the King's Indian exist. And the chess publishing, I mean, I've got a massive library of chess books. Look, here are some of them. Chess books, New in Chess Yearbook, book on the Catalan, book on pawn endings, Winning with the Grunfeld. You know, I've spent so much money on them. And it's fantastic. I mean, obviously now we're in the kind of database computer age. And some of those old variations in the books aren't right, but the chess publishing revolution was extraordinary, and Ray has been a very prolific writer in publications and in books. So let's look at this amazing game. It's an absolute beauty. 1973. It is a modernist game against Kovacevic, who I believe is Croatian Yugoslavian grandmaster. So knight f3 from Ray, d5, pawn to b3. So what you've got here is you've got the Nimzowitsch-Larsen attack, but played on move 2, which allows white to rule out e5 on move 1. So knight f3 stops e5, because if you play b3 on move 1, then e5 is possible, and probably objectively best, or certainly lots of engines like it. In these days, this move was seen as an eccentricity. I mean, nowadays, it is reasonably serious, particularly on short time controls, and people like Nakamura have done amazing things with it. And actually, one of our local players is absolutely brilliant with it. A number of them are. So it's become rather trendy. But in these days, you know, this was a sort of pioneering and slightly offbeat. Any flank opening was really seen as offbeat, you know. Bishop g4. So this is a good move. This kind of makes sense. The bishop naturally comes to b2 to occupy the fianchetto. Knight d7. So I suppose the idea here is at some stage to play e5 in a sort of classical style. So Ray really goes for it in terms of modernism. Pawn to g3, which is tempting black to take on f3. I don't think taking f3 is quite correct, actually. The pawn's pretty useful, and Ray makes good use of it, and also it gives up the bishop pair, but black chooses to take. Developing the knight makes sense, and now f4 just to stop e5. Pawn e6, bishop g2. So you've got this lovely, I mean, this is when chess starts to come to life. You realise all these things. You've got this lovely modernist idea of both of the bishops fianchettoed. And you know, white's development's going well, soon castling, but black's very solid. I mean, black's very solid and very classical. Castle, castle. And now pawn a4. I'll be honest with you, I can't explain pawn a4. Should we try and explain pawn a4? It's all very deep. I mean, I would have played pawn d3. What does the engine want to do? The engine wants to play pawn a4 or pawn c4. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, pawn a4 for some deep reasons I don't even know. I mean, it certainly stops the knight going to b6, or it would threaten the knight on b6. Pawn d3, just developing the knight. And now Black is trying to expand on the queen side. So I suppose what you could say is that white's pawn a4 was a way to sort of stop or halt black's attack on the queen side, black's expansion on the queen side. And actually, we'll see the queen side as the early battleground. So queen d3. The engine doesn't really like this taking here because basically it gives black a weakness on the open file. Engine wants to push on to b4 and just lock the thing. But I think black wants to open things up here and get some activity. I suppose because black's not going to get activity on the king side or in the centre because white is controlling the centre from a distance. Classic modernism play. And so if black wants to create play or counterplay, it has to be on the queen side. But ray's taken here, and now black does have this weakness on an open file. Moves the knight to b6 with tempo, and then pushes again. But ray finds the solution, which is rook fa1. So when black takes, white can take at the back, the knight has to go into the corner, and then white takes back with the knight. So I would say here, black's efforts on the queen side have come to naught. White is still beautifully harmonious, controlling the centre. And black's pieces is, I would say, slightly misplaced, although he immediately takes action to change that. But ray doesn't give him any time, plays this very energetic move, f5, which is a sacrifice, but it is a correct sacrifice. So opening lines for the queen, which we will see are very important. And then knight d4, so the obvious simple threat is to take on c6 and, as it might be, fork the queen and bishop, which is defended by the queen. Now, there's another threat to take on f5, which black prevents by playing pawn g6. So guess what white does next? There are a sequence of moves here which are really hard to guess and which are absolutely magnificent. So, what would you play as white? What do you think white should play? Okay, so to play this, you have to see the follow-up. So this, to me, looks like it's coming out of a clear blue sky. I mean, I would not have seen this because it's just not clear what the follow-up is. So the bishop's sacrificed here, which black is obliged to take, and then another rook is sacrificed. So, again, black just has to take this. I mean, if the queen moves, I assume the bishop just drops on e7. And certainly the engines would say if the queen doesn't take, it's completely gone. So queen takes here, and then the point is there's a fork here of the queen and the bishop. And we're winning a bishop back with check. But of course, we have still sacrificed a rook. So, in material terms, black is still a million miles ahead. So, white would have had to seen, as it might be, all the way. King here, and then the final move. And again, this would have required real vision. In a sense, you'd say sacrificing a knight, another piece, with queen h5, but that knight, I mean, if you take that knight, the queen check on g5 is the end of days, and white cashes in big time. So let's look at this, because actually it is the main line. Queen takes, queen check there. So what I would say of this, it doesn't even need to be said, is such an original combination. Queen takes, pick up the knight. I mean, everything just collapses and white cashes in. It's such an original combination. Such a beautiful, you know, when I was young we were doing forks and skewers and spikes. This thing it's absolutely beautiful, and it's multi-level, and you know, to have seen you can move here, sack the knight, of course the knight's pinned against the king so the knight can't take the queen. It's an absolute joy. I mean, just let's review. Does black have any other ideas here? So the threat is queen g5 check is always the threat, and then a check on f6 straight afterwards with the bishop or the queen, and essentially that just cannot be dealt with. That cannot be dealt with. So all of that would have had to have been seen. I mean, it'd be good to know from Ray actually where he saw this. My assumption is he probably saw it when he played f5. which is absolutely incredible. I don't think it was prep, because I think this is so original. The opening is so original that this doesn't strike me as prep. This strikes me as F5 was the big idea, which is sacking a pawn. I mean, black gets double pawns, so it's probably sacking half a pawn. White gives up a double pawn and gives black a double pawn, but I suspect he saw it all from here, which is wonderful. I mean, it's what the very best chess players can do. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this. I'm going to do some more games from Ray. He's tweeted me a few more, and I've looked at them. They're absolutely fantastic. And I think one of the lovely things about chess is, it's a global community of people speaking the same language, and making each other unhappy by beating each other. And I just think that's great. And so, it's really nice that he sent some suggestions. And if other people want to send suggestions of their own game or others, then they're very, very welcome. Hope everyone's well and lockdown is okay for you, and look forward to seeing you soon. And thanks again to Ray for a fantastic game.